Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium of case reports between the 1st to the 8th of March, 2021. Case files number 67 to 72. Case file number 67, written by user Ernesto Marord. Moxie had passed away, but maybe not entirely yet. Moxie was 14 years old. She was a pit mix, sweet dog with a strong personality. On New Year's Eve 2020, she suffered from vestibular disease, which refers to a sudden, non-progressive disturbance of balance. It is more common in older dogs. It's also referred to as old dog vestibular syndrome and canine idiopathic vestibular syndrome. This happened while I was walking her and the other dog, Kuma, together. We were about half a block from the house when this happened. After the diagnosis on the 1st and 6th of January, her health deteriorated further. Lost about 20 pounds and refused to relieve herself outside, even with a comfortable sling I had purchased for her to ease her walking and to ease my back. She died on February 1st around 9 a.m. There was sadness all around. A week later, on the 8th, we were in the kitchen making dinner when suddenly her distinctive bark of happiness was heard down the hallway from our bedroom. One loud bark. This is something she would do regularly to get our attention so we could help her get onto the bed. We both stopped what we were doing and stared at each other. The other dog looked down the hallway also. I said, "That was Moxie." Her, "It was." Me, "She must be saying hello from the afterlife." We both, and Kuma, curiously went to the bedroom, turned on the light, and there was nothing out of the ordinary, just the notion that she barked at us from the afterlife. Case notes, file number 67. So this was one final echo from your beloved. This is beautiful in its sadness. Ordinarily, if only one of you had heard it, I'd have chalked it up to your mind conjuring her bark as almost a defense mechanism against the weight of your loss. Of course, your wife heard it too, and even Kuma, the other dog, so there's nothing hallucinatory about that. I do love it when unusual events have multiple witnesses. I'm genuinely sorry for your loss. I've had 3 dogs in my relatively short life so far. It's hard to describe the biting, sharp pain that accompanies their passing. But I think biting and sharp do a good enough job. But as they say, time does mend all wounds, so hang in there. You'll be okay. A quick note before the next story. If you're enjoying the video, consider sharing it. It really helps. Thank you. Case file number 68, written by user Marian of Oz. This is her sister's recounting of an unsettling reality not of her own. Hi, I'm from Italy, and I've already contributed with 2 posts and strange things often happen to me. But this happened yesterday to my sister, and she's still freaked out about it. Due to the pandemic, she's working at home, and every midday, she goes to our parents to take the family dog out for a walk. Yesterday, she went to take Jazz out, but there was no Jazz. He was nowhere to be found. Our dad was out grocery shopping, and our mom was in the kitchen. When she asked her if Jazz was with our father, our mother asked her who was Jazz. Long story short, there was no dog. Apparently, after the death of our first dog, we didn't adopt another one. Thinking of a strange prank, which is not typical of our parents. They're not pranksters, and they're in their 80s. She searched the house, and she couldn't find anything suggesting the presence of a dog. No dog food, no dog bed, no dog toys, which he has plenty of. They're always strewn about everywhere. Then our dad came home. When she interrogated him, he started to think that she was the one who was joking. At the same time, from the kitchen TV, she heard the news reporter talking about the end of the pandemic and the surge of something she couldn't understand. This morning, she said to me that the reporter didn't seem very preoccupied for the surge of whatever it was, because a word she couldn't hear would take care of it. She was so agitated that she also warned me that maybe she didn't understand it well. After that, she returned home because she didn't want our parents to see her while she was freaking out, and she tried to call me because she's still indifferent to these kinds of events. But she knows I'm a believer, and she wanted me to join her to unravel what happened, trying to understand what had happened. And then, I was nowhere to be found. My cell phone wasn't active, and she couldn't even reach the shop where I work. They simply didn't answer the phone, which is quite improbable because except for being closed, for us to answer the phone is mandatory. She tried with some of my friends too, with no success. After that, she went to bed and cried until she fell asleep. This morning, I found 16 calls from her, with today's date. I called her back worried that something had happened, and she was crying. She's still very agitated, and she took Jazz to her home because she wants him to spend the night with her. She also confessed to me that yesterday, she couldn't muster the courage to call our parents or relatives and ask about me, because she was too scared they would tell her she was an only child. At the moment, she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, and obviously, I keep asking myself what was that? My parents told me yesterday that they didn't see her at all. They tried to call her at midday for the dog, but her phone was muted, and they concluded that maybe she was busy. They thought it was strange her phone was muted, but they didn't investigate further. This is all. I keep wondering where Jazz and I were, and what the news was talking about. Maybe in another universe, if my sister was not hallucinating. She never had these kinds of problems before. I'm so curious, but she's still too freaked out to talk about it again. A little update. My sister made a doctor's appointment for next week because we talked about nightmares and vivid dreams, and she had those, but nothing like that. She thinks she's stressed and that she may have had a mental breakdown. The evening we spent together, she told me the rest of the story, which has no mystery in it. She got home totally panicked and she couldn't stop crying. She laid down to calm down and in the end, she cried herself to sleep. She was awakened by the cold in the middle of the night. She felt confused, tired, and with a big headache. Then she vaguely remembers calling me. This time the call went through properly. She felt reassured by the ring and she kept calling me every time she woke up. Unfortunately, I didn't have a ringtone, so I saw them only in the morning. Now she's very angry, and she's panicked. And after making me swear it wasn't a bad joke on my part, she decided to see a doctor. She ruled out anything weird. To her, the only mystery is that she has lost a day. That Sunday, before going to get the dog, she did some computer work. Then she got dressed and went to my parents'. When she woke up, the computer was on standby, but with no work saved. She was completely dressed and the bed was made. The door was not locked. Maybe she was sleepwalking, but she never suffered from it before. This is all. Thank you again for the attention. Also about the dog, Jazz was the name they gave him at the shelter, and we kept it. Case notes, file number 68. There was some transition point if I'm understanding correctly. She was in an alternate universe that's almost a certainty from what I'm reading. Uniquely though, relative to other stories like this, the universe she occupied briefly was significantly different from our own. Normally, quote-unquote, the differences are very subtle, often not even noticeable for a long time, but when she got back home and called you, the calls went through. She was back. Perhaps it was related to her falling asleep. It wouldn't be our physical bodies moving in space-time, but the conscious player in us hopping bodies. You can call it our souls if you want. In sci-fi, the best comparison I could make is in Stargate SG-1, the 9th and 10th seasons. They have an ancient device that links consciousnesses between people, tethered to the device. The original host body shifts to the first body, and the first body shifts to the original, no matter the distance, trading places effectively. But instead of through space-time, In this case, it's through many other universes parallel to our own. I just don't understand why or how it happens. Of course, that's the mystery. Case file number 69, written by user SkinnyMini18. He saw his girlfriend going into the bathroom. No windows inside. Somehow, she wasn't there when he checked later. To start with, I and my girlfriend have had many weird experiences. If you want to hear about those, just let me know. Anyways, back when we were around 16 and 17, I was staying over at her mom's apartment. When you first enter the apartment, the kitchen is on the left, then her mom's room and the bathroom is on the right. If you keep going straight is the dining room and living room, with my girlfriend's room in the back, to the right, and she has a mini bathroom in her room. It's a very small apartment, so it's not hard to bump into each other or miss anyone. Anyways, her sister was watching TV in the living room, and her mom was walking back and forth from her room to the kitchen, doing stuff. I was in my girlfriend's room, waiting for her, because she told me she had to use the bathroom. I saw her walk in, and waited for her for like 15 minutes on her bed, facing the bathroom door. After a while, I got worried and walked up to the door and called out for her, but didn't get a response, so I checked the door handle and it was unlocked. I opened the door and didn't see her at all in the bathroom. The bathroom is super small and had no windows or anything, so I was super confused. I went to the living room and asked her sister if she saw her come out, and she said no. I asked her mom the same thing, and she said no as well. We looked all over the apartment and didn't see her at all, and we all got worried. I called her phone and it kept going straight to voicemail. It wasn't anywhere in the apartment. She usually takes it with her to the bathroom. Eventually, we saw her walking from a distance outside and she looked out of it. To this day, we still don't understand what happened. She doesn't even remember what happened exactly, but I still remember it vividly because of how much it freaked me out. I also checked her phone and it didn't even show I called her. She legitimately teleported out of the bathroom into the parking lot. She would have no reason to just walk outside anyway, because at the time, we were stuck together like glue. We were in our honeymoon love-struck stage. Case notes, file number 69. Does she have no clear recollection of what happened at all? For instance, does she remember heading into the bathroom, which you saw her do? Also, this is a while back, so it's doubtful you have this information, but I am curious. Not sure how long ago this was, how old are you now? But if Google Maps was a thing, did you check that? It can give a lot of useful information regarding time loss or teleportation glitches. If the GPS logs in your position as never having moved, just appearing in a new location instantaneously, well, that indeed lends more proof to this happening, given there are no windows in the bathroom at all. It's not like she could Houdini herself out. The author responded to my comment, saying, "This happened many years ago, almost 6 years ago now. She doesn't even remember this happening, but I do clearly. And more weird, crazy things happened around that time, at the same apartment, and she remembers all of those other times, so I know I didn't make it up in my head." What do you think? Case file number 70, written by user Takakta. A simple trip across the west coast, reaching a lodging cabin that changed overnight. 10 years ago, I was a stupid 18-year-old kid who was living with his parents in Flagstaff, Arizona. We moved almost every 3 years due to the nature of my dad's work, and so I got to see most of the country. It was a Tuesday in November. My mom said we were packing up the apartment and moving to Seattle for what was going to be another year and 2 months. I had a small 300cc motorcycle at the time. I think it was a V-Star, but I could be wrong, and decided to hook up a GPS and use the time to go on a ride across the west coast. My mother didn't like the idea, but I knew I'd be safe due to personal experience and knowing when and when not to ride. Besides, it would be a 3-day trip and I'd get to see all sorts of neat stuff along the way. I notified my job that I was going to transfer, threw on my saddlebags, and a day later I was on the road. I managed to make it through western Nevada to avoid LA traffic and stopped before taking the I-5 into California. That evening, I stayed in a day's inn that had a parking spot specifically and an extremely comfy bed. After breakfast and a talk with the locals, I crossed through Reno into Western California. From there, it was only 4 more hours until I reached Oregon. Luckily, I had time to spare, so I wanted to take some back roads and discover what this dank, damp state had to offer. It was fall, and there was a deep chill in the air. Riding through it sent shivers down my spine like nothing else ever had. November's weather in Oregon is almost identical to that of Pittsburgh during that season. It makes you want to curl up in a ball and sleep for a decade, only to wake up and repeat the process all over again. Eventually, I grew tired enough that I wanted to find somewhere to stay and managed to see a sign advertising a Green Hills Hunting Lodge on the side of the road. It was accompanied by a long, steep hill that took me what felt like an hour to climb. Though when I reached the top, I was greeted by a large and gorgeous cabin that looked like it was specifically made for weddings, as something ripped out of a fairy tale. I was bewildered. I parked my bike, took off my bags, and threw a tarp over it which was secured by bungee cords. I walked inside and met a Korean woman who was working at the front desk. She spoke perfect English, but had a very distinctive accent, in which she explained to me that I could choose my room due to an abundance of vacancy. Cool, right? I chose room 31, as the entire building was all on one floor that evening. She handed me a key with the tag 31 attached via keyring, and tells me to have a good night. I throw all my stuff down and head to the bathroom to wash up after riding for an entire day. The room itself looks like a cabin, stunning in its beauty. The floorboards are all real wood, and even the shower has the same natural wood as a tub surround. I take a shower, then head to bed, and realize that the mattress is incredibly comfortable. It makes me all cozy, only to realize something is off. It's not something obvious, but I knew there was some sort of oddity about this place. I push it to the back of my mind and fall asleep. The next morning I wake up to find the walls went from natural brown to a deeper gray, as if they were stained overnight. This wasn't a result of natural lighting via LEDs. The room was without a doubt a different color. I shrug it off and get all my stuff together, making sure everything is still where I left it. I head out of the room to find that not only had the wood changed color, I was on a second floor that previously didn't exist. The light from the morning sun wasn't permeating the windows of the cabin, and there was no one in sight. I started to freak out, nearly having a panic attack because this wasn't right. Thankfully, there were stairs that I dashed down as fast as I could, and made my way to the front desk and rang the bell once, twice, 3 times. I was breathing heavy, and I knew I had to get out of there. No one was coming to check up on me after about 10 minutes of waiting, so I dashed out of the doors and into the lot. I ripped the tarp off my bike and looked back at the lodge. It wasn't the same lodge. This was a broken down, abandoned, dirty building that looked as though it was about to be condemned. I didn't want to ask any more questions and rode off as fast as I could. That place still haunts me, even to this day. Case notes, file number 70. A chilling tale indeed. Did you by chance pay with a credit card, or was it just cash? I'd be very curious if the trail you took to get to this cabin was on Google Maps, if retracing your steps is possible here. Or maybe again GPS tracking via your phone. The vibes I get from this story are reminiscent of Twin Peaks. Something just off, you know? All that's missing is that beautiful soundtrack and a dancing dwarf. Case file number 71, written by user Sydney Danielle 23. Hotel elevator ascends, not to where it's supposed to. First off, I know this is nothing compared to the other stories on here, but I choose to share because why not? Before and after this incident, several other things continued happening to me, strange things. I've just gotten used to it and even have learned to appreciate them. So this was when I was about 8, 2001. My mom, brother, aunt, and grandma had all traveled to Chicago to see Dinosaur Sue, We had been staying in a hotel nearby for about 5 days. It was very upscale, new, and overall very nice. For those entire 5 days, my mom would let me run ahead to the elevator when returning to our room from swimming, getting ice, etc., and let me ride up alone since our room was right to the left of the elevator when you got off, and my grandma would always have the door cracked. One day, on the way back from the pool, I just got out. Wet hair, suit, towel. I did the same, ran ahead and entered the elevator, pressed the button for the 7th floor. There is only one elevator in this hotel, by the way. When I got to the 7th floor, which I knew by the signs outside the elevator, I went to the second door to the left, as I had maybe 20 times before in that week. I knocked and knocked. Nothing. I remember becoming weirdly alarmed at this point. The best way I can describe it. Even though I was smart enough to know I could always just return to the lobby, or that my mom would be arriving shortly. So, while wondering why my grandma wasn't answering the door, I returned the few feet to the elevator and waited for my mom and brother. I saw on the display that the elevator was arriving on floor 7, the floor I was on, which was written on the sign. I see the light and hear the elevator ding. The doors open. Empty. At this point, I just feel something is very off and return to the door, knocking and crying now, getting cold because I'm still very wet from the pool. Finally, after no more than 1 minute, a very old woman answers the door and says, "Dear, I told you already yesterday, this is not your room." I had never been there yesterday. She then said, "It'll be fine, I'm very sorry, but I'm on the phone with my son. Give it a few more minutes, your mother is coming." And freaking closed the door. I was shocked, and how could anyone close the door on a crying kid who lost their mother, especially a woman who seemed like the caring grandmother type. Almost immediately after she closed the door, the elevator opened and my mom ran out crying and grabbed me. She was saying, "Oh honey, where were you? I've never been so worried." She then went to open the door. Not our room. She was stunned. The whole time I'm trying to explain I had been here, and my timeline of events had only been about 5 minutes. She kind of just went into autopilot and went back into the elevator with me. She pressed 7 again. The doors closed super briefly and then reopened. The elevator didn't move at all. Once the door opened, we both saw my grandmother standing in the second door to the left crying, and then very happy, running to hug us. I had been missing for 45 minutes. Police were called. Every floor had been gone to. They were still in the process of knocking on all doors, opening even locked, vacant rooms. My mother had decided to once more go and look at the pool to see if I had returned there. Then, after seeing it empty, she took the same only elevator back to floor 7. Only this time, out of the multiple other times that day, she found me. And not only that, we were not in the elevator hiding out, as it was the only one. And the police and staff had gone up and down the elevator multiple times looking for me. We still talk about it to this day, and I can't explain it. My hair was still wet. The police were kinda pissed until the hotel staff pulled up the camera showing me getting on the elevator, but then never getting off. Then, what was the creepiest was that my mother got on from the lobby. You see her get on. 10 minutes pass. Then she gets off at floor 7 with me in her arms. They went through all cameras on all floors, which had very clear angles of the elevator on each floor. Nothing. I swear, the staff was freaked out, as were the police. They were almost convinced someone had taken me and then became freaked out and left me shortly after. They were stumped as to why my hair was still wet, but they couldn't refute the cameras, as they were high resolution, working correctly and everything. I always wanted to call back and see if they were still talking about it years later. I just don't want to mess with it, because it's not like I even see the event as serving a purpose, you know? I have no clue who the woman was, nor was I ever able to identify her. Because of the investigation, even after they found me, they locked down the hotel and all possible exits, and even had a perimeter surrounding the hotel. Chicago does not mess around, by the way, with possible abductions. Every guest in the hotel was more than happy to help. All women from ages 50 and on, all willingly let the police take photos, but not one of them was the woman I saw in our room. The woman I saw had very blue eyes, like very. The only possible connection I can think of is that the woman and I had almost identical eyes. I have kind of a rare color for how dark my hair is. I don't know. Update. Just texted my mom. She thinks, I think it might have been the DoubleTree. I'm sure I can find out. I also called the police station and they have no clue what I'm talking about. What the hell? And I find it weird that no one in my family can remember the name of this hotel. Even my grandma, who has traveled the world and remembers every place she ever stayed at, can't remember the name. Case file number 71. Do you know what I think? Somehow this was a glimpse of you into the future, as a mature lady. The hint is given that your eyes seem to match almost identically, and no one in the hotel over 50 matched who you saw. It explains why this lady, you in the future, showed no concern. She knew your mom would find you right after because it had already happened to her. Already happened to you. Of course, where were you in those 45 minutes? It's not a hidden hotel room, nor would it be an alternate universe crossover, since those run concurrently with our timeline. It is as if you temporarily time traveled into the future. Your mom too, somehow, related with that elevator, then back. I don't understand how, though. It's truly baffling. It doesn't really fit into any of the ordinary glitch boxes. The author responded to my comment, saying, I know, it blows my mind. Logically, it doesn't make sense. I still think it could be a coincidence, or like maybe a deceased relative. Who the heck knows? What do you think? Case file number 72. Written by user Rogue Stardust. Skeptical, but what he saw convinced him there's more to this world and beyond. I work with one other person closely throughout most workdays, and today, we get to work early as we knew we had to get stuff done before the snowstorm hits. I work at a burial vault manufacturer, and we deliver and set up funerals graveside, if the customer wishes. Well, on this morning, I walk to the back and turn on the lights to see each section of the shop, and on the very last switch I turn on, I see an older gentleman facing away from me, leaning against the back wall, facing the back of the shop. It startled me, and I turned around to tell my coworker that there's someone in the shop. My coworker kind of laughs as I tell him, and he says, "Oh, so you saw him, did you?" It's the owner's father who has strong ties to the workplace, but has been dead for 10 years. 3 recorded sightings of him, mine being the 4th. I'm fairly new there, so this has completely caught me off guard. I felt like I was dreaming. I had to sit in the bathroom for 10 minutes to calm down. I saw someone back there who then just disappeared. I always thought ghosts and spirits were nonsense, but this has completely turned me sideways. I see life in a whole new way now. I can't stop thinking about him though. Those blue overalls and white hair with a cap on. Clear as day right there, and it was a ghost. My coworker, who told me he saw him too, has turned me into a believer because I know I'm not losing my mind. Case file number 72. I'm just someone who reports on these accounts, but I've never had any paranormal experience happen directly anyway, so I'm not a believer per se. I just noticed so many stories that it's hard for me to believe they're all fake. Reading this one, I genuinely believe you saw what you did. An old man who previously owned the burial vault company. He passed on, but still was tethered to the location, or at least a droplet of his essence remaining behind. Let me know if you see him again, or any of your coworkers do. Oh, and did your coworkers see him dressed in the same way? Blue overalls and a cap? The author responded to my comment, saying, "Even to this day, over a week later, I lay at night thinking that the world is full of spirits and only show themselves in certain situations. It's honestly like we're living side by side with another reality. My wife says I need to stop obsessing over it, but she didn't see what I saw. It's fascinating but scary at the same time. Yes, always wearing the same outfit. Coworker has seen him twice in the past. Continuing my thoughts. Really is incredible, isn't it? Makes you question if these spirits consciously decide when they want to see or not be seen, or if it sort of happens to them randomly. Are they even aware of their fate, I wonder? The author responded again, saying, I believe time is irrelevant to them, or they don't play by our rules. I believe some choose to keep one foot in our realm, whether it be for unfinished business or just strong ties to an establishment. I was a full non-believer, so I don't know why he would show himself to me. Maybe it was an introduction. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and subscribe on up. I'll see you soon.